Welcome to We the People, a new birth of freedom. I really appreciate you stopping by, and if you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. Tell your friends, your relatives, your neighbors, your acquaintances, and above all, tell your enemies. And please leave comments below, and I'll get back to you. December 1st, 1955. A very interesting day. A very interesting day in the history of the United States of America. Small-built woman stepped onto a bus in Montgomery, Alabama, found her seat in the section that was designated for those of her race, took a seat, and within a short amount of time, the bus driver, whose last name was Blake, I believe, he approached her, as well as two or three others, and said that they were going to have to relinquish their seats because the white section of the bus was filled up and there were several more white passengers that needed a seat, so they would have to relinquish theirs and stand for the bus ride. Well, history tells us that two or three others did relinquish their seat. However, this small but powerful woman said, "No, I'm not going to relinquish my seat. I'm not going to stand." And she just totally refused. Well, the bus driver continued the dialogue and warned her that if she did not relinquish her seat, that he would call the police. Well, in short order, he ended up calling the police and they arrested her. This woman, who is certainly one of my heroes, was named Rosa Macaulay Parks. Rosa Parks, a woman of history. Quite a reputation. Well, she was arrested, and there's a story behind that. Maybe we'll get into that at another time. But she stood her ground because she believed in freedom. She believed she had the right to sit, especially in the seat that was already designated for those of her race. She wasn't violating the statute that was made in, I think, around 1900, segregating the blacks from the whites in the South. So she took her rightfully designated seat. And because she refused, she was treated like a criminal. Well, she's one of my heroes. She was a rebel. She was an outlaw. She was a criminal because she believed in moral principles, moral law, and was even obeying the political law that designated that she sit in that particular section. So there's a lot that could be gleaned from that story. And one aspect I want to bring out is that she was obeying the law. She was sitting in the designated place that the law mandated that she sits. However, political law, here's where we get in trouble. Political law can be changed on a whim. Remember. If political law gives you your freedom, political law can take it away. But political law is not the final authority of freedom, of liberty. It's a moral law. It's a law of nature, given by nature's God. It's inalienable. Why do you think they use those type of words? Inalienable rights. Truths that are self-evident. They're intrinsic. They're inherent within us. They're the crown jewels of our life. But to the political arena, she became a criminal. Good for her. Because it kicked off a series of events that would finally lead to the civil rights movement. But here's the thing. During that time, in the 50s, as well as right on up into the 60s, the 13th Amendment was being spit upon. The 13th Amendment abolished slavery. But it not only abolished slavery, if you read the 13th Amendment, it also abolished involuntary servitude. In other words, the African Americans were free. Free as the white Americans. And I hate to use those Crayola crayon descriptions, and you maybe listened to my previous videos where I went into the Crayola crayon syndrome. But for the sake of this discussion here, I'm going to use the black and white Crayola crayon descriptions of the human race. She refused because it was her right to sit in the place that was designated for her to sit. But wasn't good enough. So she was arrested. Remember what I just said. If political law gives you your freedom, political law can take it away. But that intrinsic, inherent law of liberty cannot be taken away unless you forfeit it yourself, which she was not doing. So the 13th Amendment was being spit on. And then right on up into the early 60s, when Governor Wallace was elected governor, in his inaugural speech, he quoted those notable words, "I say segregation now, or segregation today, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever." That is involuntary servitude. That's not what the 13th Amendment said. It said, slavery shall not exist in the United States, nor any of its jurisdiction, nor involuntary servitude. But the blacks had to sit in a certain place. They had to eat in a certain place. They had to use certain restrooms. They had to go to certain schools. That's involuntary servitude. I don't know why politicians, law students can't read. They spend thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on an education, but apparently the professors in the law schools that they go to do not teach them how to read. And that's a shame. That's pathetic. It's really sickening and reprehensible. They take the simplicity and the clarity and the truth of human language and they bastardize it. They say, well, I don't think that word means what it means, so I'm going to invent another definition. Or I don't like the way that situation's going, so I'm going to circumvent it and do it my way. And they still do that today. They're trying to do that to the Second Amendment. But nevertheless, Governor Wallace spit upon the Constitution, the Declaration, and the Bill of Rights, the 13th Amendment. She wasn't even afforded due process. She just sat in a place that they didn't want her to sit, even though it was her rightful seat, but they didn't want her to sit there because a white passenger needed her seat. Well, excuse me, it's bullshit. It's just total bullshit. But that's the way politics works. And like I said, they're trying to do that to the Second Amendment now. They can't read it. They don't know how to read. They have no idea. With all of their lofty education, they have no idea how to read. It concludes with, the Second Amendment concludes with, shall not be infringed. What part of that's so hard to understand? But the point I want to make in this short video is, if your freedom is based on political decisions, by mortals, by human beings that have an agenda, that are power hungry, that are greedy, that want to control and manipulate society. If your freedom is based on their decision and some legislative process by a political agenda, you're not free. You're still a slave. My freedom, as well as millions of American patriots, is not based on political process. It's based on the laws of nature, nature's God, inalienable rights, truths that are self-evident when it comes to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So I want you to meditate on that. And please, share these videos, get it out into everybody's hands that you can. Encourage them to listen to these videos. Not because it's me, but I am an American patriot. I do love America. I do love the United States of America. I do love the American people. I'm for life, liberty, justice, and the pursuit of happiness in the context of our founding documents. It's not rocket science. It's very simple. Just read it for what it says. That's why they wrote it that way. That's why it was put on paper that way, because it's so easy to understand and yet so profound. But as one man said, there's nothing so powerful as truth, and often nothing so strange. Until next time, be a true American, and God bless.